Is Brad Marchand considering the Leafs in free agency? And what other dark horse free agents could be good fits with the Buds? You're listening to the Locked On at Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On at Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. What is happening, pal? How you feeling on a Thursday?
I'm feeling good. Just, continue to wait for everything to drop now that the cup final is done. Let's get the wheel and dealing going.
Yeah, I mean, we got a couple of moves within 24 hours of the cup being awarded to the Florida Panthers. We had a couple signings. Matt Rempe extended with New York. We had a couple other guys extend. In one trade, we did get a trade as well. We'll get into that in the news and notes segment. There's also an interesting little nugget about the Edmonton Oilers possibly in some hot water from what they did earlier this offseason. We'll get into that as well in a little bit, but I want to get into something that's quite interesting. I like to bet a little bit, and I do bet with our friends over on FanDuel quite often. And I couldn't help but just check out what their futures market looked like, right? I like to, right after the cup was awarded, all right, who's next? Who do they have as a cup favorite the day after the Stanley Cup is handed out? Who do you think the FanDuel currently has as the cup favorite for next year?
Florida.
You would think, right? Wouldn't that make sense?
Usually.
It's not. They're second. Who's your next choice?
My next choice, not the Leafs. I'll say that.
No.
Who?
Just throw out a team. Let's throw out some teams.
Dallas.
Here. Keep going. I'll let you know when you get there. No.
Edmonton.
No.
Tampa.
No.
Rangers.
No.
Capitals.
Rangers. The Carolina Hurricanes are currently favored to win the Stanley Cup next year at plus 700. Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes plus 700 to win the Cup next year. Florida and
money, people.
Yeah, don't waste your money. I agree. Florida and Edmonton both at plus 750. That must be with the assumption that they might somehow drum up the courage to make a big splashy free agent signing and lure in Mitch Marner. Is that supposed to put them over the top? Like, that might be it, right? That might be it. And that kind of brings me to what I wanted to get into, linking to my passions, the Maple Leafs and the betting markets. And we've talked about it before, where the Mitch Marner betting market is for his next landing spot. And Toronto is tumbling down the rankings, and his odds are getting longer and longer to return to Toronto. At one point, they were the second highest, second shortest odds, so second most likely landing spot per the betting market. I think it was like plus 470 or something like that at one point, that the Leafs were going to retain Mitch Marner. That was a few weeks ago. Within the last few weeks, that has tumbled from plus 470, I think it was. They're now plus 2,100, which is 21-1, which ranks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. They're the 8th ranked team now when it comes to landing or re-signing Mitch Marner and him playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs next year. And those odds continue just to grow. So even the books are telling us it's becoming less and less likely that Marner returns to Toronto.
Yeah, I think there's just so much that has been thrown out there last week to suggest it ain't happened. Like, it's not even like the reporter saying anything. It's that, he's canceling his charity event.
Yeah, I saw that. We didn't talk about that on the podcast though, but I did see that report. I think was it Hornby on the Toronto Sun wrote a story about it, and like a few different outlets have now written about it. But there was an official statement I think that was made from the Marner Assist Foundation that said the event is not happening this year, but please note the Marner Assist Foundation will continue to honor all its commitments made to our charitable partners in the communities we serve. We're grateful for all the support, volunteers, donors, and sponsors. So he's had this event every year since 2018, COVID aside for the ones that he couldn't, obviously. And this is the first year that he's canceled it, which is, again, just quite telling that it doesn't feel like he's going to return to Toronto. And he knows the media circus that comes with hosting that event. And he probably knows if he's not going to be here, he doesn't want to have to answer the barrage of questions and comments that are going to be thrown at him. So it decided just to cancel it, I suppose, instead, which is, again, another sign that he's done with the city, done with the franchise.
Yeah, and I just remember these events had always kind of become trying to get a player to talk about something other than the charity event. Like all the reporters want to ask, like, whether it's off-season questions, contracts, and stuff. Like last year, big topic going into his event was, will Mitch Marner sign an extension?
Right, but if you recall, actually, last year, mainstream media was not invited and weren't allowed to come because they knew that those contract conversations were going to happen, and he didn't want to do that. Now, I didn't have a problem with that. I'll be completely honest with you. I think there is a time and a place, and I don't think that's necessarily the time nor the place. I get the media has a job to do. You and I work in the media. We understand that. You'll get your chance come, the second that training camp kicks off to ask all the pertinent questions you want at that point. His charity event, maybe not the time or place. So I was okay with that. But this year to cancel it entirely, I mean, to me, that just, I don't know if I'm looking into it too much, but probably, again, a reason why he's canceling it is because he doesn't plan on being a Maple Leaf at that point.
Yeah, and it's going to be, he's going to be bombarded with were you ever considering it? Like, just questions he won't want to answer. And
what would you want to ask Marner? Well, if you had a one-on-one with him, like what would you want to ask him right now?
At what point did you start contemplating that maybe return to Toronto wasn't in the plans for you? Like, when did you decide, you know what, it's time to just move on? Because I don't think it happened during the season. I think this has happened. This has been an ongoing process for him.
So you think last year he had already twice the Leafs did reach out to try and, like, it's been reported at least, had reached out to try and get some negotiations going on an extension, and he declined to have those conversations. At the beginning of the season, like last summer, they had reached out, and apparently, right before the trade deadline, prior to making the, Rantanen attempt, their first option was to try and get an extension in place for Marner. And that was when he said no, when they said, well, then would you consider a trade so we don't lose you for nothing? And again, he came out and said no, reportedly. All reports, but that is what has been heavily reported. So, he's been pretty forward with not wanting to re-sign with Toronto all season long, to be honest with you. And the way that the fan base, I guess, has thrown him, under the bus, which deservedly so, I will say, as a big reason for the failures over the last few years. He's not the only one. I think all the core four, plus Riley, all the core players who've been here for a long time deserve an equal share of the blame. And, he may feel like he's been unjustly, pinpointed as maybe the scapegoat in a way. But anyways, nothing that we can do to change his mind, that's for sure. So it's likely gonna end in a breakup with Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, technically, there's still 12, 13 days? Yeah, 13 days, I think it is, before they got to figure it out. No, 12. Yeah, 13 days before that he truly becomes a free agent. So there's still some time, less than 2 weeks, to try and mend that fractured relationship. But to quote myself, my famous line from Overdrive, I just don't see it happening, Dave. I just don't see it happening.
The Alice brother wisdom coming in hot. Bringing on the AB wisdom.
Yeah. Vegas, clearly, there was a report a week ago that they tried to acquire him twice over the course of the last calendar year. They're favored at plus 195 now, heavy favorites after being, I think they're the fifth shortest when this odds first came out. They were fifth. They were fifth in odds to vote or to land Marner. They're now the top spot at plus 195. Carolina at plus 470 in second place. Anaheim at plus 800. The Pittsburgh Penguins have shot up. Pittsburgh, it says plus 600. I don't know if that what's going on there. It may be supposed to be 800, but it says plus 600 right now. And then Chicago, fifth at also plus 800, tied with the Anaheim Ducks. And then, Toronto all the way down at plus 2,100, behind the Utah Mammoth at 16-1, plus 1,600 to land Mitch Marner. So we'll see what happens there. But there is one other player's odds that are posted, a big-time free agent, and Toronto is a lot higher on those odds. We'll get to that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keeping you feeling fuller longer. If you're a fan of, looking for something that's good on the go, that doesn't have a lot of mess, especially when you're eating pistachios, then go for the no-shell variety. It's the perfect snack for a road trip, eating at your desk. It just provides that quick protein boost, and it's always a go-to for many people. But if you like cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So get snacking and cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
The Locked On at Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. The season's over, but the Locked On Leafs podcast is not. Subscribe for your daily dose of Maple Leafs content. And although the Leafs are tumbling down in the Mitch Marner sweepstakes, the FanDuel odds there, they do sit atop of the Brad Marchand sweepstakes. They are favored at plus 340, granted, tied with Florida, and that's only recently. Yesterday, when I looked at the odds, they were the lone favorites, and then since winning the Cup and since Marchand, got the love from the Florida crowd, maybe some betting has come in to move the market a little bit. Florida now tied with Toronto, but Toronto still have the highest odds to land them at plus 340. What odds would you give here, Dave, of that actually happening? Do you think that there's a strong appetite for Leafs management to go out and get a Brad Marchand? And do you think that they'll make the biggest offer, the biggest push of any of the teams out there to do it?
I don't think they're going to give the biggest push. I think they will be in the mix. I think they will make an offer. But I don't see them trying to blow all teams out of the water to go get Brad Marchand. And look, phenomenal playoff, and for years we have learned to hate this player.
Yeah.
Now it's funny how it all reverses in that. Let's go get a Brad Marchand. Which,
if you can't beat him, join him. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But it's like, okay, so now all of a sudden I just think there's so many teams that will want to throw more money than what the Leafs will want to offer.
Is there a better player available right now, though, Dave, that could replace, and not fully, but like, is there anyone better that could possibly come close to replacing Marner than Marchand? I'm not sure there is. Like, that would be the top replacement option, I think, on the open market.
It's either him or we've talked about Patrick Kane before. Like, those, if I'm looking at wingers, those are the two. Marchand, okay, but they're two different guys. Like,
very different.
Marchand is more of a heart and soul leader type.
Did you hear Sam Bennett's after the game, he was speaking. I think it was Gene Principe after the game, and talking to, maybe it was Amber, and either way, talking with on the Sportsnet broadcast about Brad Marchand and what he meant to the team when he got there, and spoke glowingly and said, you are a leader. Like, we go as you go. And they looked up to him. They had won a Stanley Cup a year ago, and they still looked to him to be a tone setter for this group this year. Like, that's the type of player that Toronto solely does need. A tone setter like that, who in the biggest moments shows up. And he certainly freaking did that in the biggest moments in this series, not only against Toronto, but did it against Carolina and certainly against the Edmonton Oilers. What did he score in five of the 6 games in this series? Like, the guy was all over the place, and put himself in that mix for Conn Smythe right behind Sam Bennett. I think Toronto should take a heavy run at Marchand. I really do.
Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be within the contenders for him.
Yeah,
I think they will definitely make a good push. I do wonder. We've seen sometimes free agents use Toronto as leverage.
Yes,
not just in the NHL, MLB, NBA.
I think that's more so in other sports. I don't think that happens as often in the NHL, because the Leafs are the team that can flex their dollars more than any other squad. Whereas in the NBA and in the MLB, it's a little different.
I talked about this while you were gone with Frank, and just how could the Leafs tell Marchand, look, we'll pay you a decent salary, but you also want to make money in other ways in Toronto that other players have made, because we know Marchand. The one, I think it was, I can't remember who was talking about this, but Brad Marchand has not. He's been severely underpaid for years.
Yeah, probably. I think you can make these. He's been, what, $8 million or so is what
ever since he got the World Cup of Hockey. 2016 was kind of when he had that breakout, right? When he started to go from a 50, 60 point guy to now guys, in the 80. Yeah. And it's like, okay, how much is he costing? Oh, just over $6 million a year. Like,
how much he was making? I thought it was in the 8s. Only $6 million.
He because the Bruins took half his salary. He cost the Panthers just over $3 million.
No way! I swear, I thought that it was he was making more than that. Maybe not. 6.125. Wow, criminally underrated, underpaid. You're right.
Yeah. So guess what? When a player's been underpaid like that, and he's gonna have all these teams calling him and going for him, guess what? Ching ching. Salary cap's going up. So that's my only concern here, is that a lot of these guys that throw this guy out there, throw that guy out there. Well, they know the Leafs are going to be a bit desperate, especially if Marner leaves. Oh yeah, you got the cash now. Mitch Marner's not there. You can pay me instead.
I'll say this though, and I know, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like GMs seem to do this quite often, but the smart general managers typically pay you for what you're going to do, not what you already did.
And what
Marchand, right, at Marchand, at his age, like, he's going to be how old when he signs his contract?
Well, he's going to be 38.
38, like he's 37 right now. Yeah, he'll be 38 by the time that contract starts. Or has he just turned 37 maybe? Yeah, I think he just turned 37. So either way, he'll be 37 years old.
We're talking about, like, people are saying 3-4 year deal, well over $8 million a year for this guy. So
8 years?
No, 8 million over 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean,
minimum 8 million.
Like, here's where I have that issue. And again, this is where it's almost similar to Sam Bennett, where, okay, had an unbelievable playoff, and he's been a playoff performer his entire career, obviously, right? You look at his playoff numbers, and those have been spectacular as well, right? Couple cups. What does he have? 4 trips to the Cup final, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 4 trips to a Cup final. He's now 1-2. He had 20 points in 23 games this year, in the Cup run. But when you look at his total stats, like 47 points 51 points this year, 67 last year, 67 the year before that, 80. Okay, but now we're looking at that was 4 years ago since he's eclipsed the 80-point mark, and he's only getting older. So again, it's like, do I really pay $8 million for a guy who might get you 50 to 60 points in the regular season, and hopefully he gets you over the top in the playoffs? Like that is the question. But someone's going to do it. Someone's going to do it. And it wouldn't shock me though if Toronto does do that. Like,
Wouldn't be.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I think I'd do it. Like if Toronto's going to take a step forward this year, Brad Marchand's right now the best way to do it. You get Marchand signed, whatever. If you got to give him 4 years, whatever, you get it done. Like you just got to get it done. That gives you the best chance to win next season, because there's a drop off after that, right?
Yep.
Marner, he's not come back. You don't get Marchand. Who else is available? Brock Besser, he can barely stay healthy himself. Like it's a big drop off once you get past those two guys. So I think they're in a spot where the cap is rising. There's high demand. A lot of teams have space, which could create a bidding war. I think you're going to have to pay that $8 million AAV and give him an extra year or so to lure him in, almost like you had to do with Patrick Marleau. Again, it didn't work, but they weren't ready to compete for a Stanley Cup at that point, where I feel like this team is right now. And Marchand, the way he plays, that style of player, solely needed in this lineup. And I think that's the type of heart and soul player that could kind of get this team over the top. I would push the chips in on if I were the Maple Leafs.
Well, that's it, right? Like, if you're looking at moves, they're looking for players that, and like again, Brad Marchand's been saying this for a long time. Like, that was his whole press conference. Guys who aren't afraid of the big moment, right?
That's winning DNA right there.
Marchand is one. That's why I brought up Patrick Kane. That guy's never been afraid of the spotlight. Those are the players you need. Look past the age, because guess what? This playoff show that older guys can still get it done too.
Yeah.
Right? Corey Perry was like, how many people were talking about Corey Perry? Go after Corey Perry.
Did you see the clip of Ekholm and I think it was Bouchard talking on the bench about Marchand's speed? Like, Ekholm was flabbergasted at the speed that Marchand had on a couple of those burst plays. And I mean, the guy was getting breakaways, scoring. Like, so his legs are still there. I don't know how, but the legs are still there on Marchand. And that's, I guess, one thing that you definitely have to look at and appreciate about him at 37 is the legs are still there. And hopefully they can be there for another 2, you hope 3 years if you're signing him to a 3-year deal, but certainly at least a couple of seasons, and you can get enough out of Marchand and enough out of that contract to make it worth it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do expect him to hit free agency. I do expect there to be a bidding war on Marchand. Will Toronto win that war? We'll see. He did say once upon a time he was a Leaf fan, and that'd be a nice little goal to end the Cup drought for Canada, end the Cup drought for the Maple Leafs, and go from being the most hated Bruin, the most hated player in Toronto, to the maybe most beloved. Like, I think that would be a pretty cool thing for Marchand to be able to do to end off his career, but we'll see. On the other side, though, Dave, you've got a couple of dark horse free agents that you've been thinking about as potential fits for Toronto. So get to that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as always. And we're less than 2 weeks away from free agency. July 1 is coming up pretty quickly. And we've talked a lot about some top free agents around the NHL. The Marners, Tavareses, the Marchands, the Bennetts, the Matt Duchenes of the world, the Bessers and whatnot. we haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about some dark horse guys, a little bit later, down your depth players, your middle six guys, your top nines, your fourth liners. So yesterday I threw out a name that I thought would be a great addition, buy low option for the Maple Leafs that they could use as a middle six player, and that was Andrew Mangiapane, who's had coming off a down year in Washington, but had a great season a few years back under Brad Treliving, whom he was drafted and developed by and under 35 goal season a few years back, just 14 this year. As he hits free agency, probably not going to cost you an arm and a leg, but does have some good skill out there, good two-way player. But Dave's got a couple other options as well that might be good fits for the Maple Leafs. So I'll give you the floor, Dave. Who do you like as dark horse free agent options?
Yeah, my top guy here, he is Riley Smith. If you want a guy,
I like that. Cup champion Riley Smith.
Cup champion, has had a very, very productive career, just especially in the playoffs. I think he's got well over 80 points and over 100 plus games in the playoffs. Like, he's performed in the playoffs. Very versatile player, can play power play, penalty kill. Like, he's got a positive defensive rating. He's also he scored 15. I think he has 15 career shorthanded goals. Like, he's not just a guy that's going to kill. Like, we're talking about, one thing that Marner had done well is he played on the penalty kill and also provide a little bit of offense there. That's something that Riley Smith can do. And he's 34, so he's not, into the later. He's in the later stages of his career, but he's not like, in the 35 plus range yet. And yeah, I think there's a lot. He still has a lot to give. The only thing that the Leafs have going against them when it comes to Riley Smith potentially is he's probably going to want to stay in Vegas. Like, he didn't want to leave in the first place. He got traded. He was part of that like mass exodus of we are just going to keep turning the clock, getting new players, right? So he was like one of the original. What do they used to call them? The
Misfits.
He was like a part of that. Got traded to Pittsburgh. Didn't really work out well. Great in Pittsburgh. Got traded to the Rangers. And the Rangers like, well, we'll flip you to the Golden Knights as kind of like a bit of a favor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's still playing well over 15 minutes a night at that age. I think he'd be a valuable guy to have on this team.
Yeah, I mean, he's a third line player, but he can come in and provide a little bit of offense. Like you said, we have 16 goals this year, split between the Rangers and the Golden Knights. 13 year with Pittsburgh, didn't go so well, but 26 the year before that, and a couple times he's eclipsed that 25 goal mark. And he's a two-way guy, right? Can play full 200 feet of the ice, kill penalties, and he's got a lot of playoff experience as well. Had 22 points in that inaugural Vegas run with the Misfits the year that they went to the Cup. He had 60 points in 67 regular season games and then 22 points in 20 playoff games. That was kind of his breakout kind of season there for the Golden Knights. So yeah, there's a good player in there, and I don't think he's that guy anymore. He's not going to get you 60 points, but maybe 40 points as a third liner who can, second power play, and then he can kind of go up and down your lineup. He's got some speed and can kill penalties for sure. So I like it, and he's got the playoff pedigree as well. Was there one more you wanted to mention as an honorable mention?
Well, I always look at this guy. I was watching him a lot in the playoffs with Edmonton. He was the guy that I never wanted Toronto to trade him. So maybe it's just a right or wrong, and that's Connor Brown.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see what goes on with Edmonton.
That's
they run it back with the same group again for a third year after losing twice. Like, did they have to kind of mix it up a little bit more? Because they literally just brought back most of the same group last year and ran it back, and they added a couple of players, but pretty well the same core and same depth too, and just ran it back. Didn't change though, so I wonder if they need to find some other players and change up the mix, the depth a little bit. And if that's the case, maybe Connor Brown does shake loose.
And look, I think Connor Brown likes Vegas. Vegas, Edmonton. So, I mean, he could go. He can maybe go to Vegas too if Vegas reaches out to him. But I think like he had that bad rap the first year he got back to Edmonton or went to Edmonton because of the knee injury. He just wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
But, despite playing a very limited role, he had 13 goals this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very productive for a guy who bounces up and down the lineup, plays on the penalty kill. I think he's the perfect guy that can go up and down your lineup. And I don't think he costs you a lot either. That's kind of why I think he'll make more than $1 million than he did this past year. That was just like a 1-year thing, but like I don't think he's going to cost that much. And I think he's also a guy that's proven that he can also play up on the big stage.
Yeah, and he's played in Toronto before, and he's played with Matthews before, and Nylander before. Like, not to say he's going to come over here and be on the top line, but he can fit into that room pretty seamlessly.
He's also played on the top line with Connor McDavid. Like, he is a guy that's capable of doing it.
He can plays 200 feet, so he definitely can do it if asked. He's got that speed to play with those players, that's for sure. So yeah, Connor Brown will be a very interesting player to kind of bring back into the fold, potentially here for the Maple Leafs. So those are a few dark horse candidates that possibly could be good fits in Toronto. I'm still of the belief that they go big fish hunting, get one of those big guys, probably Marchand. I think that's the one that would be at the top of mind for me, at the top of the list, that's for sure. But we'll see. Again, 13 days away, or I guess 12 days away by the time this podcast is officially released. 12 days away from free agency, and we'll see what happens. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.